what has been the most valuable lesson you have learnt so far in your career?
I think it's got to be, you have to have like a plan A, B, C, and D when it comes to like a day on set. And I think maybe don't get stuck to the script in the sense that you're going to come to the edit and it's going to change completely. You can't get too put into the fact that, well, this is what I wanted it to be.
If you could kind of look back at yourself maybe 6 or 7 years ago, what advice or words would you say to your younger self?
Stick to your own path and like trust that your path will get you somewhere, as opposed to having to, look at other people. You can aspire to be other people, but your route will be completely different.
Do you have any advice for creators just starting out in the camera department?
Try and seize any opportunity you can, like get onto set, meet people, because of it's people who are gonna want to bring you back onto more productions, and like being just a nice, kind person is gonna get you onto a lot more productions. And the more productions you get onto, the more you learn, the more experience you get, the better you get at doing whatever job within that camera department you want to do.
Okay, so we're going to start with Harley Kierans, if that's okay. Harley, come on, unmute yourself.
Hi, you're right.
Yeah, how are you?
Everyone.
You all right?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you.
Nice. So do you want to kind of explain who you are and how you got to this point?
So I'm Harley Kierans and I'm at uni doing film production and just started a production company with my good friend Scott, who was going to come, but he's actually in uni in America, so he's got classes and he's like, I think there's an American football game or something going on. But so I was producer on 2 films, I think, in the screening. To Be a Young Actor, which is a documentary about a drama school that in Islington that actually Daniel Kaluuya and Asa Butterfield went to, and that's how they started out. And also another film called Anxious, which is about a guy struggling to sort of find love and seeking guidance in all the wrong places.
Damn, nice. Fair enough. You say you went to university. What university is this?
University of Hertfordshire.
Nice. And what's the course, if you don't mind me asking?
The course is film and TV production, and with that, it gives us a good platform to work on projects because we have access to pretty much industry standard equipment and gives us good insights into working, as professionally as you can. With mainly most of the lecturers are people still working in the industry rather than people, maybe with other subjects that have sort of done the job and now have decided to be lecturers.
Fair play. So you said about making a production company together. How did that come about?
Well, it was just kind of going on a fact that we had started making stuff ourselves and knew a lot of people that were starting, like wanted to do music or were starting their own businesses. So it kind of made sense to we thought we'd try and capitalize on that fact and help people with ads and videos. And it just kind of came about that we started a production company to try and make it a bit more legit. We recently did a thing with an anti-knife crime campaigner with his new charity called 21 Up, and we're helping him make a documentary about how he's gone through his process of sort of making his charity and getting that to try and make a difference.
Nice, man. It's good that you're doing it for a good cause, which is good to see, man. So what's the name of the production company?
Shush Productions.
Shush Productions. Nice. With the projects you've put into the screening, like obviously I know some people here haven't yet watched the films, but is there anything you perhaps want to talk about the films, perhaps how it's kind of helped people? What was your like, how comes you come up with the idea of making those projects?
Well, the documentary came about because I actually went to the drama school as well, and I've done acting myself for a long time, done that on the side, worked on some projects for BBC, a few films here and there, and I kind of moved away from that a bit now. But that was something I did when I was younger, so the place kind of held a special place with me. So I thought I wanted to try and bring light to it, being someone who grew up in Islington as well, you know, and like you might have the connotations in a city in London that, you know, you don't maybe have the same opportunities to do stuff like that. And I wanted to just, you know, bring light on somewhere that's maybe given so much opportunities for people maybe a bit more disadvantaged in their upbringing. You know, I think that the documentary does that in the short period of time that we were able, like that we have to make the film, only shooting it over a week, trying to get as much as we could to try and not disrupt classes, as well as we organised getting some alumni down to try and give us their thoughts as well.
Nice.
And then with Anxious, that was more so my business partner, Scott, he writes most of our projects, and it was just an idea that he got. He was talking about when he was younger, and he was a bit of a hopeless romantic in that sort, and he thought to sort of touch on that himself, and then we kind of had a bit of fun with it, you know, and just kind of took it in the set, kind of let the actors play it in the sense that they wanted to try and give it a bit more of that sort of comedic value and make it a bit more real.
Yeah. Oh, cool, man. So a couple more questions, and then we'll go to the ones that people have put in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to hear your thoughts, because obviously you saw the films at Odeon.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
I mean, it was great to sort of, you know, when you put in a lot of effort and stuff like that in smaller things that, you know, maybe main people that are going to see it are friends and family and the odd other people, to think that, you know, you get to show it in the environment that, you know, if you're a filmmaker, all of us sort of dream of having films get put into like a cinema, and, you know, it was a nice experience.
So what's the next steps for you then? What's your your mindset on now?
Well, we're we're going to keep working with the anti-knife crime thing, but we've also got 2 scripts that we're writing at the minute, and sort of just really whatever work comes up. But those 2 scripts are they'll be our personal projects, a bit separate from maybe business side of it, but just something that we will enjoy doing.
Yeah. Cool. I'm just going to go to some of the questions people put in the chat, if that's okay with you, Harley, just to read them out. So Alicia's asked, what has been the most valuable lesson that you have learned so far in your career? Oh, that's a tough one.
I think it's got to be, you have to have like a plan A, B, C, and D when it comes to like a day on set. Because you're never gonna it's never really gonna work out the way you want it to. When it comes to actually, like, there's something will happen on the day of a shot, or something will happen the day before you're going to shoot. Especially if you're shooting on location, you've got so many other variables that when it's low budget, you maybe can't control to the best of your ability, like that you would in a massive like studio production. And sort of be as friendly as you can, because you kind of got to ask for so many favors when you're working on low budget. It's like asking for favors and really just trying to like give off the thing that, like, it's a back and forth type of thing, like. And I think maybe don't get stuck to the script, in the sense that you're going to come to the edit and it's going to change completely. You can't get too put into the fact that, well, this is what I wanted it to be. But if it doesn't work when you actually get there and you're sitting down watching it back over, like, you can get attached to a shot or a scene because you knew how long it took to get or how much effort's gone into it. But sometimes, you know, you just gotta be a bit like brutal on yourself, I think, and what you've put into it.
Well answered, because that was a tough one. Well, I guess you semi-answered this question, but I'll ask it. What are the challenges you face on set when working on a low-budget project?
Yeah, it's all of. Well, I think the main thing that is tough, but if you really put in the effort and the work and plan ahead quite a bit, is I think actors. If you're working on a drama, to get good actors that want to work for no money, you got to get people that are going to work for nothing. Really, and that's tough because, you know, it's not just. So you really got to nail down the things. So the technical details and the small things, although you watch it back when you're done and you think, oh, why have I done that? I don't think you'll ever be pleased with what you've put out. Like, you can be happy, but like, there's always going to be little things that you just hate. And so try and get the fine details just ironed out, because that's how you get in people that are maybe, you know, a bit higher budget to actually think, you know, I'll give these people a chance and give them my time. And it can make such a big difference to a film if you have people that are confident and just professional, because I think that sort of like seeps into the whole crew and everyone gets that sort of confidence boost, and it just it makes it go a lot easier.
Nice, man. We just had one more question come through, which is, how did you get the funding? So I assume that's, how did you get the funding for the films you've spoken about?
Well, none of it's glamorous when it comes to getting funding. You just got to try, and sometimes it's out of your own pocket. You just got to scrape together stuff, all put in a bit. You know, good way that we've done in the past is made a poster early, made like 20 posters, and then got them, like sold those, mainly just friends and family getting them. But it just sort of gives that, at least, so you're giving something, not for nothing, in the sense that you're not just asking for like a donation, but they're getting something in return. And that's a good way to sort of work on it. But normally try and work as cheap as you can, because most of the time it probably is going to cost you money. If you can get lucky enough to get good funding from, like, there's loads of grants and stuff like that out there, but they're super competitive. Like, and so I think you've got to try and work in the mindset that you're not really going to have much of a budget unless you want to put in the money. But there are a few things you can do to try and, you know, gain a little bit of money, mainly just to pay travel expenses and food for actors. That's pretty much all you're paying for.
Yeah, I totally agree. Last question. If there's excuse me, if there's anyone watching now in this call, or perhaps, you know, online throughout the week, who wants to be in a similar position to where you are, perhaps they're an aspiring actor or want to own their own production company, is there any advice you would give, perhaps even to a younger version of yourself?
I think you just got to stick with it, because especially in this industry, it's long. Like, not in a bad way, because if you love it, it doesn't feel long, but it does take a while, and you're going to get knockbacks. Like, that's the fact. But I think that's a fact for any sort of industry that you work in. But if you truly love it, then stick with it. And I think, and just do what you want to do as well, because there's going to be people that tell you, oh, no. But if I think, you know, there's a lot of people out there that like the same stuff as you, and just do it how you want to do it, but have a strong team of people that you can go back and forth with around you, so that you're not criticizing each other, but you're just supporting each other to build up that sort of environment, I guess, and then final product.
Yeah, nice, man. well, I'm afraid that's all the time we've got questions for Harley. But I just want to say thank you for your time.
You.
I know you're
No
very
worries,
busy,
man.
man.
Thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause because that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harley.
No worries.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. It's tough. Let's go with Holly. That's okay, Holly. Let's have a chat.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, pleasure. Thank you for coming. I know you're extremely busy, so I appreciate your time. So tell us, who are you?
Cool. So out of the films that you've watched, I am the co-producer and actor in The Agency. My background started in musical theatre and the dance world, really. So dance and drama school for 3 years. And then from there, it was actually in the first lockdown. I remember I set up my own, Star Now, Mandy backstage profile. And I remember seeing, especially obviously during COVID, there's no dance work, no musical theatre, no stage work. And I started seeing loads of self-tape auditions for films and student films. I was like, you know what? I've always fancied that. And I've never thought about doing it because I've always just been focused on the dance world. And I did a self-tape for a kind of student film, got the job. Looking back now on the self-tape, it's quite funny. It's in portrait. It's awful. You can hardly hear me. I don't know how I got the job. But I'm so grateful for that opportunity because from then, that's what kind of spurred on my love for screen acting. So I suppose when you look back, it's only really in the last 2-3 years that I've been focusing more on this route. But I think once you're used to being on set, and once you're in the production side of things, you can see the magic behind filmmaking and why people enjoy it so much. So now I'm primarily focusing on screen acting, and The Agency that you saw was actually a random idea. It was, again, just towards the end of lockdown, and Dan, my co-star, I messaged him out of the blue because he worked on the previous film that I'd done with him, and I said, do you fancy creating something? And he was like, yeah, sure. And within a week, he'd written a script, I'd found a location, found a team, and we just did it. And I think exactly what Harley was saying about the pulling favors thing, your team around you and the people that you can pull from different places that you've worked with are your absolute foundation and of what you create. If you can make that team strong, no matter really what your level is yet, but if you can build it up together as well, that's when you can create something really amazing. Yeah.
Nice. Wow. You've been on a long and hard-working journey from this. Yeah.
Yeah. Not great yet.
So have you always known you wanted to be a performer then, ever since you were little? Because you did dancing originally. How did that kind of turn out to be a thing for you?
So I love dance and music, and being in the theatre has always been what I've wanted to do. The older you get, I suppose, the more you realize the lifestyle that comes with these things that you maybe haven't thought about when you're younger. And I've done lots of different job roles within theatre, so dance captain, associate director, choreographer, fight choreographer, all these different roles within the theatre and stage, and I love them. But it does get to a point as well where you're actually this bubble is actually really small, and you do start to realize the patterns of you've got to be in that circle of people, and as much as I still love the dance world, I think now my passion does lie in the screen acting world. And like I say, it's only really from doing that very first student film that I'd probably never done if it hadn't been for lockdown that made me realize this is what I wanted to do. So I think sometimes when bad things happen, right, good things and a change of path can actually happen as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So the fact that you've co-produced The Agency as well, what was that like working with Dan Robbins and then that whole process of the film? What's your take on it?
Yeah, so Dan actually was script supervisor for Behind Closed Doors, which was the first student film that I did. And Tom Laxton, the DP and director for the agency, he was also on that film. So again, going back to what Harley said about creating your team, these are people I worked with before. So I knew I already get on with them, right? Especially when you're doing low budget and you need things to work quickly and, you know, as favors in some aspect. You need to remember those people that you enjoy working with. And I remember Dan was very energetic and had this like excitement for creating things. And when I asked him to be on board, he was like, yeah, absolutely. And I had never really done much writing before. And although it's an avenue potentially one day I'd like to go down, I was much more, I like to be the logistics and producing side. So I was like, yeah, I'll find a location, get the team. And Tom is incredible. Like everyone on this call, Tom Laxton is going to be massive. Like he's one of the most talented DPs I've worked with. And he also shot a fight sequence I've done. He was on The Witcher with me. We were on set together for that. So he's really incredible. And he actually did Birdsong as well. So that's another one of the films that you'll see on the screening.
Nice. So where do you get the skills to co-produce and things like that? Because you say, you know, you've done loads of acting. How did that kind of come about? And like, what was your experience in that?
Does anyone ever know what they're doing? I don't think so. Not 100%, right? Like, and you have to take the risk with it. Like, obviously you calculate things and we understood what we could actually do on the day and how we make it work. But I think there is an element of fake it till you make it, or just put yourself in that uncomfortable place of, is it going to work? Like what's the worst that's going to happen? We don't post this anywhere. Or like, if it's just something you're generally passionate about doing, then there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. So I guess skills wise, it's something you learn on the job, first of all. Funding wise, it's same as Harley, like you can apply for things. Me and Dan actually just kind of made it as cheap as possible, of course, and split that and covered, you know, our cruise travel and stuff. But I don't know whether there's maybe on a bigger production, you'd need more skills, but I stick to what I said at the beginning of, does anyone 100%, there's always stuff that goes wrong. Does anyone 100% know the answers all the time? I don't know.
Good question. Nice.
I definitely don't.
Fair enough. So I guess what's your next steps then? Like now you've done the agency, now you've done some films, like what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so I would love to do TV. I've been doing a few, you know, casting director workshops and stuff. And for anyone who's aspiring to go down the acting route, I'd say obviously the first thing is the skill, but the second thing is networking and being in that room and putting, you know, taking the risk and being like, do you know what, I'm going to pay the money and get in the room and be seen by these people. And the more you're in that space with directors and things, the more you get seen, right? And the more confidence you get for being in the bubble of people. So I've been doing lots of that. And I'm also doing a military drama feature film which is shooting in March next year, which is awesome. So that's like the lead role, and the character is something that I've, funnily enough, always wanted to do, and never really thought it'd happen the way it has. But manifestation, I guess, if you kind of picture yourself as a certain casting role and you keep training in that route, like the agency's obviously got that military aspect as well, or like kind of, you know, that thriller side. And then this appeared. So it was a long audition process, but that's what I'll be working on next, next March, shooting in Malaysia, which will be cool. Bit of sunshine. I'm sure I'll keep you up to date.
Wow. So with everything you've learned and all the stuff you've kind of got going on for you now, if you could kind of look back at yourself maybe 6 or 7 years ago, what advice or words would you say to your younger self?
Have your own back, and not in like a bitter way, but at times, like again, like Harley said, like at times you're gonna get no's all the time, and it's not going to seem possible. And you see the 0.5% that make it to a Hollywood blockbuster, or the people within your bubble that you see always seem to be working, and you're like, oh, they're always getting picked for stuff. Why am I getting picked for stuff? But you just have to create your own route. You can't copy what someone else is doing. So I'd say stick to your own path and like trust that your path will get you somewhere, as opposed to having to you know, look at other people, you can aspire to be other people, but your route will be completely different.
Nice, good advice. We had a question in the chat. So the question was, what locations did you use to shoot?
Oh, so there's a place called, I think it was called Maverick Projects, and they're in East London, and it was an incredible, like, what's the word, kind of empty house that had been completely just left, and there was 3 floors, and it was actually quite cheap. Do you know what? Maybe I'll give this to you, Josh, after, if you're actually interested in like the link to it, because the people were there were awesome, gave you the keys. And because obviously, I don't know if you've seen the agency, I'm not sure who asked that question, but it's actually set in that location. And obviously the other answer is, for a lot of student films and low budget independent films, outside is always a nice cheap option if you can find the space. But yeah, you have to just pull your favors as well for like houses. Behind Closed Doors was shot in my daughter in the film's house, so if you can go down that route, that's always a nice low budget way of doing it as well. But yeah, research and pull favors where possible. Never burn your bridges.
Never burn your bridges. Yeah, I love that. Last question from me, and also feel free, guys, to put any questions in the chat if there's anything you want to ask. So I'm just curious as to kind of, you said you got this project coming up in Malaysia, right? I wonder, kind of networking wise, how does it go from one thing to the other? Because you said from ever since you did that student film, everything's kind of happened. Is that all through the people you've met, or did you apply for stuff? Like, how did you get all these opportunities after, you know, one after another?
Do you know what's funny is I say that obviously, but there's a lot of like work that goes into it behind that. So I'll always stay in touch with people after things, and not even on like trying to get something out of them, but like if I genuinely get on with someone on set, or I'll make sure I have their details and follow them and then message them when things happen. And if you can keep in that cycle with people, honestly, it really does. That's the way to network, because people can smell if you're not being genuine. If you're in it for something else, people just, we get it, right? If someone messages you and just wants something, even to meet up, you're like, Whereas if you can offer something to them and they can offer something to you, there's like an exchange, and you'll both, you know, get on, and then there's so much more that can come from that in the future. So I definitely say, find your people on projects and just keep in with them, you know, follow each other's and support each other's journeys, and then keep crossing those paths where you can, for sure.
Nice, Holly. One question was, this is a tough one. Well, what or who inspires you?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Well, I suppose I have to say my boyfriend, since he's on the call. I'll play related to that. But no, generally he's an actor as well. So I think actually being with him, obviously I've seen, you know, his incredible accents, and seeing other people do things that I would love to do. Even fellow actors, like one of my friends, Lauren, seeing her journey, how she's made it onto bigger things. And it all starts, you know, from independent and low budget films. Again, people that I've seen on set and made good connections with on set. Like, it inspires me to see it can happen to you, and it can happen to people that you work with. So why can't it happen to you? So it's a bit of a weird, long-winded question, but I suppose other people that are making it from independent film level. Nice, Holly. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for answering all the questions. I know there was quite a lot. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, let's give a round of applause to Holly. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Oh, and Jennifer Lawrence, she inspires me as well. Go on. Yeah.